Starseeds and lightworkers, something has been sitting quietly in your chest for a long time now. Not anger, not bitterness, something more like a slow exhale, a release. Because some part of you always knew the truth, even when the people around you refused to see it. I am Tyron, a representative of the High Council of Sirius. And I want you to hear this clearly, not as a comfort, but as a confirmation. You were never the problem. You were simply someone they could not bend, could not shrink, could not make small enough to fit their expectations. And that unsettled them far more than they ever let you see. By the end of this message, you will understand why the ones who misread you, dismissed you, or tried to diminish you were never truly seeing you at all. And why that was never about your worth. Every starseed who carries Sirian codes has moved through rooms where people sensed something different about them and responded with resistance rather than recognition. The sharpness of your perception, the quiet depth of how you think, the way you could see past the surface of things, these were never flaws, they were signals. And those who could not match that depth tried to reframe it as a problem. Because the alternative meant acknowledging something within themselves they were not yet ready to face. The time spent trying to convince you that you were too sensitive, too much, too complicated. That time belonged to them, not to you. You were never diminished by it, even when it felt that way. The river does not stop moving because someone stands on the bank and doubts its direction. It flows because that is its nature. And so do you. You did not find this message by accident. Something in you recognized this signal before you could explain it. Your Sirian codes carried you here because you are ready to finally set down what was never yours to carry. Stay with me. What comes next is for you. And I am grateful you are here with me now. They called you too sensitive, too intense, too much, and for a long time, you wondered if they were right. You softened yourself. You made yourself smaller. You learned to apologize for the very things that made you extraordinary. But here is what was actually happening. They could feel what you carried, and they didn't have the capacity to hold it. That's not a failure of yours. That's a frequency mismatch, and the soul that carries Sirian codes was never designed to be held in a space that small. Imagine trying to pour the ocean into a teacup. The overflow is inevitable, not a sign of a faulty cup, but of the boundless nature of the water itself. Your very essence, imbued with the luminous frequencies of Sirius, was never meant to be contained by the limited dimensions of ordinary perception or the narrow confines of societal expectations. There's a reason water has always felt like home to you. If what you're feeling right now is confirming something you carried your whole life, the Sirian Water Codes is your next step. It holds ancient Sirian healing practices, passed down through the waters themselves, techniques for releasing energy that was never yours, activating dormant memory through the sound of rain, and sealing your frequency with salt and intention. You'll find a link in the first pinned comment. But only briefly. Water, the universal solvent and ancient carrier of consciousness, holds within its depths a profound connection to the star system of Sirius. It resonates with the very core of your being, whispering truths that your soul has always recognized. These are not mere mystical notions but practical, ancient techniques that tap into the liquid light of Sirian wisdom. They offer a pathway to cleanse yourself of energetic imprints that do not serve your highest good, to awaken the echoes of past lives held within your cellular memory through the gentle cadence of rainfall, and to fortify your energetic field with the elemental purity of salt and the focused power of conscious intent. The link to this profound journey awaits you, a fleeting invitation to immerse yourself in the healing currents. That ache you've carried, the one that never quite had a name, it wasn't emptiness, it was overflow. It was the pressure of holding something vast inside a world that was trying to convince you to be ordinary. Every time someone dismissed you, every time your knowing was called paranoia or your sensitivity was called weakness, Something in you absorbed that verdict and turned it inward. And over time, you started to believe the lie. Not because you were foolish, but because you were surrounded by it long enough that it started to sound like truth. That persistent ache, that subtle hollowness you felt, was not a void but a reservoir, brimming with untapped potential. It was the sensation of carrying a universe within a vessel too small for its expanse, a world insistent on the mundane, urging you to dim your inner radiance. Each instance of your innate gifts being misinterpreted, your intuition dismissed as mere suspicion, your profound empathy labeled as over-emotionality, was an imprint absorbed, a shard of alien judgment lodged within your luminous spirit. These accumulated perceptions, like barnacles on a magnificent ship, began to obscure your own inherent truth, making the foreign narrative feel disturbingly familiar. The waters of Sirius teach something that most of this world has forgotten, that the deepest currents are invisible from the surface. The ocean doesn't explain itself to those standing on the shore. It simply moves. It simply shapes the land according to its nature, and no amount of dismissal from someone who has never dived beneath the surface changes what lives at the bottom. You were never the problem. You were the depth they refused to enter. The wisdom flowing from the Sirius star system is an ancient echo, a reminder that the most powerful forces are often unseen. Just as the ocean's profound depths and shaping power are hidden from those who only gaze at the shoreline, your own inner vastness has been misunderstood by those who lack the courage to explore beyond their limited horizons. Their inability to comprehend your essence does not diminish it. It merely highlights the shallowness of their own experience. You were never the anomaly. You were the unexplored territory, the profound mystery they chose not to engage with. Think about what it actually takes to be someone like you in a world like this. To feel things that others don't feel. To know things before they happen and have no way to explain how. To walk into a room and immediately sense what isn't being said. To carry grief that doesn't always belong to you. Love that exceeds what most people allow themselves to receive, and a longing for something you've never been able to fully name. That isn't weakness. That is a form of perception that most people spend entire lifetimes never developing, and you came in with it already awake. Consider the immense undertaking of embodying your unique frequency within a reality that often struggles to accommodate it. You possess the extraordinary ability to perceive energetic nuances that escape the ordinary senses, to intuit future events with an accuracy that defies logical explanation, to absorb the unspoken currents in any environment, and to hold within your heart a boundless capacity for both vicarious sorrow and a love so expansive it challenges conventional understanding. This profound sensitivity is not a deficit, it is an advanced faculty of perception, a sophisticated attunement that others strive for but rarely achieve. You arrive with this innate clarity, this already awakened awareness, but here is the part that most starseeds don't fully understand. That level of sensitivity, when it hasn't been protected, when it hasn't been honored, becomes a wound. Not because sensitivity itself is a wound, but because a soul that can feel everything, surrounded by people who told it that feeling was the problem, will eventually begin to doubt its own nature. And that doubt, that quiet, relentless questioning of your own inner knowing, that is the real damage, not the insults, not the rejection, the slow erosion of your trust in yourself. The critical, often unspoken truth for many who carry starseed essence is that this heightened sensitivity, when left unguarded and unvalidated, can morph into a source of deep pain. It is not the sensitivity itself that is the wound, but the societal response to it. When a being designed to perceive the subtlest energetic shifts is constantly told that their feelings are invalid, their perceptions are mistaken, and their very nature is problematic, the inevitable outcome is a profound internal dissonance. This insidious self-doubt, this persistent whisper that questions your own truth, is the true wounding. It is not the external judgment, but the internal fracturing of your self-trust that causes the deepest scars. That erosion is what you are here to undo. This is the sacred task you have undertaken, to reclaim the ground lost to self-doubt, to rebuild the bridges of trust within your own being, and to restore the integrity of your energetic and emotional architecture. This is the alchemical process of transmuting the lead of disbelief into the gold of self-recognition. Things have felt unclear lately, like you're trying to see through deep water. That fog isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's what happens when old patterns begin to dissolve. The water has to get murky before it clears. You're not lost, you're in transition. The sediment that's been stirred up isn't evidence of contamination. It's evidence of movement. Something has started to shift at the very bottom of who you are, and the disturbance you feel is simply the current beginning to flow again after a long, long stillness. That takes tremendous courage, even when it doesn't feel like it. The recent periods of ambiguity, where clarity seems obscured as if peering through murky depths, are not indicators of malfunction. Rather, they are the natural byproduct of profound transformation. Think of a deep lake whose waters must churn and swirl, becoming temporarily opaque, as ancient silt and sediment are disturbed to make way for new, pure currents. This apparent disorientation is not a sign of being lost, but of being in a powerful state of transition. The very upheaval you are experiencing is evidence of deep foundational shifts occurring within your being. It is the stirring of dormant energies, the reawakening of currents that have long lain still. This process, though it may feel unsettling, requires immense bravery, an unconscious testament to your own inner fortitude. There is something encoded inside you that goes far deeper than anything you were taught in this life. A knowledge that existed before your name, before this body, before this language. The ancient ones who kept wisdom in the halls of Amenti understood that certain truths couldn't be transmitted through doctrine or instruction. They had to be carried, held in the living architecture of a soul willing to go far enough from home to remember what home actually meant. You are not broken and searching for answers. You are whole and beginning to remember. And that remembering often begins not as a revelation, but as a feeling, quiet, persistent, and strangely familiar. Like recognizing a shore you've never stood on, but somehow always known. Within your very essence lies a tapestry of knowledge predating your current existence. An ancient wisdom woven into the fabric of your soul long before this lifetime, this form, this spoken word. The wise custodians of antiquity, those who safeguarded profound truths in sacred chambers, understood that genuine knowing could not be merely imparted. It had to be embodied, carried within the living vessel of a soul courageous enough to journey far from its origin, only to rediscover the very essence of home. You are not a fractured entity desperately seeking completion. You are inherently whole, and the nascent stages of remembering. This remembrance often manifests not as a sudden, thunderous revelation, but as a gentle, insistent feeling. A resonance so deeply familiar it feels like coming home to a place you've never physically visited, yet always recognized. This is where many starseeds pause, because nothing seems to be moving. Life looks the same from the outside. The days feel repetitive. The big shift they were promised doesn't appear to have arrived. But the stillness is not stalling, it's anchoring, like a river that widens into a calm pool before it finds its passage through the next range of mountains. Your soul is stabilizing what it has already received before it can hold what is coming. The geometry within you is realigning. The patterns are remembering their original design, and that process cannot be rushed. It can only be honored. Be gentle with yourself here. This phase is not a pause in your awakening. It is the awakening itself, working in the layer most people never see. It is a common juncture for many starseeds to experience a sense of stagnation, where the external landscape of life appears unchanged, the daily rhythm monotonous, and the anticipated grand transformation seems perpetually out of reach. However, this perceived stillness is not inertia, it is consolidation. Visualize a powerful river slowing its pace, widening into a tranquil expanse before navigating the formidable challenges of mountainous terrain. Your soul is diligently integrating and anchoring the wisdom and energy it has already received, preparing itself to receive what lies ahead. The intricate energetic patterns within you are recalibrating. The foundational blueprints of your being are being recalled. This sacred process cannot be hurried. It demands reverence and patience. Approach this phase with profound self-compassion. This period of apparent quietude is not a suspension of your awakening, it is the awakening itself, operating at a profound, often unseen, foundational level. You may not see the change yet, but the people around you already feel it. Something has shifted in how you hold yourself, in the conversations you're no longer willing to have, in the spaces you've quietly begun to leave. That isn't coincidence. The waters of Sirius carry a teaching that is older than any text, that when one current changes direction, everything downstream is reshaped. You don't need to announce your transformation. You are already transmitting it, and those who are meant to resonate with your frequency will find you not because you performed awakening for them, but because your actual frequency began to move at a different speed. While the tangible manifestations of your evolution may not yet be apparent to your conscious mind, those in your energetic field are undoubtedly sensing the subtle yet significant recalibration. There's an unshakable new quality in how you inhabit your space, a refined discernment in the conversations you now choose to engage in, and a quiet, deliberate grace in the environments you've begun to disengage from. This is not happenstance. The ancient wisdom emanating from Sirius teaches a fundamental truth. A shift in one primary current inevitably influences the entire flow downstream. Your transformation is not something to be proclaimed, it is something you are actively radiating. Those whose energetic signatures are harmonically aligned with yours will be drawn to you, not by any outward display, but by the inherent resonance of your subtly altered energetic frequency, a new velocity of being. Now comes the part that asks the most of you, because this phase doesn't ask you to do something new. It asks you to put something down. Beliefs about who you should be. Expectations layered onto you by people who never understood your nature. Emotional weight that settled into your field not because it was yours, but because you were open enough, feeling enough, present enough to absorb what others couldn't carry. You've been holding so much for so long that some of it has started to feel like identity. But it isn't you. It was never you. The river doesn't carry every stone it passes. It lets them rest at the bottom and keeps flowing. You have that same permission. All of it can be set down. Right here, right now, this current phase of your journey presents one of the most profound challenges, not the acquisition of new skills or knowledge, but the conscious release of what no longer serves. It requires you to shed the accumulated layers of imposed identities, the well-intentioned but misguided expectations from those who could not grasp your true essence, and the energetic residue of emotional burdens absorbed from others who lacked the capacity to process their own pain. Over time, these borrowed weights can become so familiar, they feel like an intrinsic part of your being. Yet, they are not. Just as a river flows past countless stones, leaving them to settle in its depths, you too have the inherent right and capacity to release these accretions. You possess the sovereign power to set down every burden that is not authentically yours, here, in this very moment. You are not late, you are not behind. The years you spent confused, the seasons you spent shrinking, the relationships that asked you to be less than you are, none of that was wasted. There is no such thing as a late awakening. There is only the perfect moment. And the perfect moment is not a date on a calendar. It is this, the instant a soul recognizes itself clearly enough to stop apologizing for its nature. That's what is happening right now. The tide doesn't rush, it doesn't negotiate with the shore. But it always arrives, and it always reshapes whatever it touches. Let go of any notion that you are running behind schedule or that you have missed an opportunity. The periods of confusion, the seasons of self-diminishment, the relationships that demanded a fraction of your full being, none of these experiences were in vain. The concept of a late awakening is an illusion. There is only the divine timing of your unfolding, the precise moment when your soul achieves a clarity so profound that it ceases to seek validation or offer apologies for its intrinsic nature. This moment is unfolding for you now, just as the tide moves with an inherent rhythm, never to be hurried or bartered with, yet always arriving to transform the shoreline. So too does your awakening arrive at its perfect moment, irrevocably reshaping your reality. Your mission was never about doing something extraordinary by the standards of a world that was never built to understand you. It was about presence, full, unguarded, unapologetic presence, the kind that only a soul carrying your specific codes can offer. What the ancient builders by the Nile understood, what was encoded long before the temples rose from the sand, is that the most powerful force in any field is not volume or performance, it is alignment. A soul aligned with its true frequency doesn't need to fight for recognition. It simply moves, and the world reshapes itself around that movement. You don't need to figure out the whole path today. You just need to be here, fully here, and trust that the current knows where it's going. The grand purpose you were born to fulfill was never defined by the metrics of a world ill-equipped to comprehend your brilliance. Your true mission lies in the power of your authentic presence, an unshielded, unwavering embodiment of your unique Sirian essence. The ancient architects of sacred sites, the keepers of forgotten wisdom, understood a fundamental principle. True power resides not in amplification or striving, but in harmonious alignment. A soul resonating with its inherent frequency does not clamor for attention. It moves with effortless grace, and its very motion recalibrates the surrounding reality. You are not required to map out every step of your journey today. Simply inhabit this present moment with your full being, and surrender to the inherent intelligence of the current guiding your path. You were never the problem. You were never too much. You were a depth of water in a world full of people who had only ever learned to swim on the surface. And of course they were afraid of you. Of course they tried to reduce you. Of course they filled the air with noise to keep you from hearing what you actually knew. Because a starseed who fully remembers what they are, who stops apologizing, stops hiding, stops waiting for permission, changes things simply by existing. And those who have built their comfort on the surface of things have always sensed that they couldn't control the current, so they tried to convince you the current wasn't real. You were never the source of any issue. You were never an overabundance. You were a profound depth, an oceanic expanse, in a world populated by those accustomed only to navigating shallow waters. Their fear of your immensity, their attempts to diminish your stature, their deliberate cacophony designed to drown out your inner knowing. These were all predictable responses. For a starseed who awakens to their true identity, who sheds the shackles of apology, concealment, and the desperate need for external validation, their very existence becomes a catalyst for change. Those who thrive on the superficial inevitably sense this, recognizing their inability to command the deep currents they sought to invalidate its very existence. But it was always real, and you always knew. The truth of your being, the depth of your consciousness, has always been an undeniable reality. And deep within, you have always held this knowing, this quiet certainty that transcends external validation. You chose to come here during the most turbulent passage this world has seen in ages. You chose to arrive carrying codes that this environment would push against, in a body that would feel everything, in a time when remembering would be the hardest thing you'd ever do. And you did it anyway, not because it would be easy, because it would be necessary, like a pearl that can only form in the dark, under pressure, at the bottom of the ocean. What you are becoming could only be shaped by exactly what you have been through. Every dismissal was part of the pressure. Every moment of confusion was the water working on you, smoothing away what didn't belong, revealing what was always there underneath. Your arrival in this dense, challenging era was a deliberate choice. You consciously selected a time of profound global upheaval, embracing a mission to carry energetic blueprints that would encounter significant resistance within this environment. You chose a physical form exquisitely sensitive to every nuance, arriving at a juncture where the act of remembering your origins would be the most arduous task imaginable. Yet you embrace this path not for its ease, but for its absolute necessity. Consider the exquisite pearl, formed not in sunlight, but in the crushing darkness and pressure of the deep ocean floor. Your own magnificent becoming is a direct result of these crucible experiences. Each instance of being dismissed contributed to the formative pressure. Every moment of disorientation was the sacred water of transformation, working upon you, gently abrading away what was extraneous, and bringing forth the luminous truth that lay within. You are not here to fix this world by force. You are not here to shout louder than the noise. You are here to hold your frequency, steady, clear, and uncompromising, until the vibration of what you carry begins to do what water has always done. Wear away the stone, fill the cracks, find its level, rise. Your purpose here is not to impose change through forceful intervention, nor to compete with the overwhelming din of the collective. Your sacred role is to maintain your unique frequency, steadfast, resonant, and unwavering. In doing so, you will embody the ancient, transformative power of water, the persistent erosion of resistance, the subtle filling of every void, the inherent capacity to seek equilibrium, and the inevitable graceful ascent. The fact that you are still here, that you stayed through this entire message, tells everything about where you are. You're not seeking anymore. You're recognizing. And that recognition is the most powerful thing that can happen. Inside a human body, carrying a Sirian soul, your continued presence, your sustained attention throughout this transmission speaks volumes about your current stage of evolution. You are no longer in a state of fervent seeking. You are in a profound process of recognition. This awakening of inner knowing, this resonance with truth, is the most potent alchemical event that can occur within a human vessel animated by a Sirian consciousness. Tonight, if it feels right, place your hand over your heart and say quietly, "I remember who I am. I trust the waters that carried me here. I am ready to flow into what comes next." Before you go, leave one word in the comments, just one, that describes what you felt during this message. Then find someone else's word and respond with encouragement. This isn't just a comment section. It's a space where starseeds recognize each other, and that recognition carries more power than you know. If something in this message touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you'd like to keep receiving these transmissions, subscribe. The waters of Sirius will carry us to the next one. You're not just watching, you're remembering. This is your space, and I'm grateful you are here.